First and foremost, giving all praises, honor, and glory be to the Heavenly Father and His Son, Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Kakadash. This lesson is brought to you in the spirit, power, and strength of Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Kakadash. Yahawah equals He is, He exists. That's the Father's true name. Yahawashi equals He saves, He delivers. That's the Son's true name. And Rakakadash equals the Spirit that's holy, the Spirit that's set apart, the Holy Spirit. Right? Second, double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops of the great millstone, which rule well, teach well, and sincerity taught us His truth. And Shalawam to the Lord's hopeful elect, 144,000 men, as well as 1/3 men, women, and children, maintaining themselves, keeping the laws, commandments, and statutes to the best of their ability, man. All right. Back with just a quick in transit, continuing this little series, The Kings of the World, Part 3, and just thinking deep in thought. It's like, I've been watching a couple shows. I'm watching this Marco Polo, where Marco Polo, this individual was basically his father brought him to the east, the Far East, Mongolia, China, and his father basically gave him over to serve under the realm, under the kingdom of Kublai Khan. This is the grandson of Genghis Khan. Now, Genghis Khan was conquering the world. He was conquering, all of Asia and stretching into the borders of Europe, and he would be considered a king of the world, right? So his sons after him will be considered kings of the world, right? Kublai Khan had a massive empire that stretched from China all the way over to like the Caspian Sea. They controlled the Silk Road. It stretched extremely far, right? India, So what I noticed between him, and then I also, actually to make the comparison, with all the kings of the world, basically, between a Nebuchadnezzar, where, what he had a god complex. Kublai Khan had the same god complex. Alexander the Greek had the same god complex, right? Julius Caesar had the same god complex. Okay, Antiochus and Epiphanes had the same god complex. All these rulers of the world, these kings of the world, and you bring it into it, same thing as the Edomites. Okay, they have that same God complex where they want to be the Most High. They build statues, idols, putting their image up where they're saying that they're the Most High. Foolish in their mind. All right. So jumping from that, more evidence, and you can find this similarity in every single king of the world, man. You're gonna find this similarity. I was looking up. Well, I was actually watching this series on Netflix, Age of the Samurai, with this individual Oda Nobunaga. Now, he became one of the rulers to rule Japan. He was taking over Japan, conquering. He built a 7-tower structure. There's a massive temple, and at all the temple, it had all these different gods. Every level of it, he had all these false gods. Okay, and then at the top of it, he had a mirror. And basically, he was portraying himself as a god. So he looked in it, it was like, you got all these religions below me, and I'm the god at the top. So it echoed all these other rulers of the world, where they all have this god complex. They want to be like the Most High, man. When Esau Edom is the most guilty of it all, he takes that realm. You see that with the Hamites, the Pharaohs, right? The Cushites, right? They worship themselves because the gods of the heathens are idols. They don't know any better in that sense. Now, when Yahawah brought us up out of Egypt, Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi, because Yahawashi was leading us in the chariots. What did the heathens know? They knew that Yahawah had did it. Right? What did Rahab say? We know that your God did this. Your God did that. We are fearful. They were scared. They were terrified. Because if Egypt at that point in time was the height, that was the civilization, that was the empire, right? The Egyptians, they had many wars with the Hittites, which is Canaanites, and they were beating them. They were ruling, right? So pharaohs believed that they were gods. That's what they spoke of. That's what they believed. That's what they, thought. All right. Let me park. I'm gonna get some precepts. But that's the mindset of these heathens, man. Where they always look at themselves as God, but they're not the Most High. Let's go to Psalms, the 2nd chapter. At the top. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? Why? Because it's in their nature. They do these things. Yahawah has created them. He has not given them that breath of life. Going back to Genesis, the 2nd chapter. He hasn't given that understanding, the laws, commandments, and statutes. Who was these laws, commandments, and statutes meant for? Who did Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi show the precepts to? He didn't show it to the heathens. Okay, let's get that furthermore in Psalms. Let's go to 147, verse 19. He showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not so dealt with any nation, and as for his judgments, among them praise ye Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi. Alright, so these other nations have never known Yahawah Bahasham Yahawashi. They have never known the ways, the statutes, the commandments. So for you to say, for Catholicism and all of that, which Catholic means to be universal, this isn't a universal thing. The Bible is not it's not for everybody. It's only for a specific group of people, as we just stated right here. So if we know that this is the life, this is that living water, this is that understanding, what would they have? They have death. They have darkness. All right? They're not set up on a standard. Let's go to Deuteronomy. They're not set up on a standard above the rest of the world. They're set up below. So for anybody to try to bring them and say that they're equal with us, that's a lie. All right? In the carnal sense, yeah, right now they're ruling over us because that's prophecy. Okay? But in a spiritual sense, inevitably, they're not going to rule over us. Okay? Forever. We're going to what? We're going to have an everlasting kingdom. So what is supposed to be will be. This is Deuteronomy 28:1. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahawah thy power, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that Yahawah thy power will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. The Most High is dealing with his people. He's setting them on high above all nations on the earth. That right there shouldn't you can't, I don't know how you could swing it any other way. But you see individuals trying to swing it this way and that way, So let's get another precept to support it. Because this is the position that the Israelites have been given. This is Deuteronomy 14, and I start at 1. Ye are the children of Yahawah, your power. So we the children of the Most High. Ye shall not cut yourselves, nor make baldness between your eyes for the dead. Don't do in that tattoos. Okay, the ways that these heathens did. These Egyptians, they cut Joseph's hair off, man. They cut his hair off. They made him look like an Egyptian to the point where his brothers couldn't even recognize him. Right? I was watching the show last night, Suits, and it's about these lawyers, but on the show, he told one lawyer dude, he told him to shave. So and that's another thing, like in when you go into any military establishment or corporations, Esau is ruling a lot of these military corporations and stuff. What do? They shave your hair off. and they make you cut your beard. All right, you got to get to their grooming standards. They have grooming standards. So these are ways of the heathens. They're not the ways of our people, right? They do everything in their nature, everything in their power to go against the laws, commandments, and statutes of the Most High, because they have made a diligent search, according to Psalm 64. Right? Verse 2, for thou art an holy people unto Yahawah thy power, and Yahawah have chosen thee to be a peculiar people unto himself, above all the nations that are upon the earth. There it goes again. Okay? He's chosen a specific group, a nation, to be above all other nations. It's only 18 nations. You have one nation that is above all the rest. You have one nation that is below all the rest. So for Yahawah to really show his power, he brought that nation that is below, which is the Edomites, right? They're the scum of the nations, and he brought them to the top. You know, we're at the height. Really, this ain't even the height of their power, because their power is falling. I'd say the height of the Edomites probably was like the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. You know, they just coming down with great wrath. All right, but when they had that atomic bomb and America was, oh, beautiful America, the streets was decked in gold, so they say, that was the height of these Edomites. You know, now they just coming down with great wrath, and they bringing straight ultimate confusion, as they always did. But it's like they desperate. You know, they coming with any desperation to hold on to something that doesn't belong to them, as all these kings of the earth did. Now I looked at, going back to Nobunaga, this dude, he couldn't even, he was ruling, and he was taking over Japan. He was taking over East Japan, West Japan, boom, 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 doing all these crusades. But he got took out by his own people. A coup was staged. It ain't gonna be no coup. It ain't gonna be no revolts. It ain't gonna be none of that in the kingdom. Your position is not to rule. You look at these houses, these houses are divided, so they shall not stand. That's what happened. And then ultimately one of his generals took over all of Japan, and then he went to fight who? He went to fight the Koreans and the Chinese, which is Moab. So Ammon began to fight Moab. We ain't gonna be no fight. We ain't gonna have to fight nobody no more in the kingdom, man. So these kings of the world is just that. Y'all kings of this world, which is this rulership. All these nations have been given a chance to rule. Like I said with Kublai Khan or Genghis Khan, all right, Kublai Khan, they was given a chance to rule. You know, they had a vast empire. You had the Romans, all right, Edomites, the Greeks, the Edomites, the Persians, okay? You had the Babylonians, you had the Egyptians, you know. You had the Cushites. You had a Cush kingdom in the land of Ham. These nations, y'all are not without that position of rulership. You have been given that chance, you know, of rulership. And so it's like the Most High, in a sense of it, where he don't gotta be, but he's been extremely fair. He's been extremely merciful, you know, in that sense. All right? Shoot, we used to be enslaved by the Moabites at a certain point in time. Look at those times. Read Judges. All right? Look at how he let those Hamites and those individuals rule over us, man. So, who has not gotten a spoil of Israel? That's somewhere in the Maccabees. I can't remember right now. But who has not gotten a spoil of us, man? You know, all these nations have been given a chance to rule. All right. That's pretty much the point. I gotta go and do this order, but pretty much the point is that God complex that these kings have. All these kings have had a God complex, and they've all tried to be in thinking that they're the Most High. Matter of fact, let's go to Isaiah. This is let me see, I start at verse 8. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no fellow is come up against us. The nations, the trees, which those trees is representing nations, are going to rejoice when the Edomites are took down. All right? The wicked is took down. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. Furthermore,